February 2nd, 2020. Joe here at Simple Life Show, where the simplest answers are usually the best. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all that good social media stuff to keep the rational voices out in front where they belong. I haven't done a video in probably 4 or 5 days or so, and I'm sorry about that. I will make that up. I am doing a kind of a longer video today. There's a lot of stuff going on that I want to cover. Been doing some writing projects, and I'm trying to do other stuff too. So, but there is a lot of good stuff going on, a lot of bad stuff going on. We're going to get down to that here in this show. So, without further ado, the first real, I guess, news story is Jon Ossoff. If you don't know who Jon Ossoff is, don't feel bad because most people really don't. He is a failed Democrat candidate, I guess from 2017, I believe. I think he ran for Senate. But what's really the news is that he says that conservatives should never show their faces in public again. This really sounds very like Maxine Waters, if you remember her kind of rant about getting up in people's faces and the conservative Republicans' faces and not making them feel welcome or anything anymore. Just push back on them. That's what Maxine Waters says. Of course, Maxine Waters have been coming out recently saying that the impeachment, the whole impeachment thing is going to just continue going on and on and on. We already knew that before she said that because that's all they can really talk about. But Jon Ossoff, has been in the news here recently about what he says. And, of course, we have some video of him saying that as well.
Message this year. We need to send a message that if you indulge this kind of politics, you're not just going to get beaten. You're going to get beaten so bad you can never run or show your face again in public. Because we have had enough. Absolutely enough.
So, yeah, Jon Ossoff says the Democrats have had enough of all of this stuff. And I think that this is just another prime example of just trying to be in the limelight, trying to take this whole impeachment thing and the whole faux outrage that goes into this whole no more witnesses stuff. And we'll get into that, how it's really hypocritical because they were saying the opposite thing back when Bill Clinton was going through his little impeachment thing. The whole point of this really is the main point I'm really trying to get across, to a lot of people is that the House Republicans or the House Democrats, who control the House had their option, they had their chance to really make a very persuasive case to impeach the president, but they just failed to do that. And even if there was a vote now this wasn't the main vote. The main vote comes probably tomorrow or the next. I think it's going to be shortly, either before or after the State of the Union address. But they had 70 plus days to put together their case. In other words, they saw and they examined and they questioned a lot of different witnesses over this period of 70 plus days while they were actually underneath, under the ground and so forth, and hiding, doing a lot of this stuff as well, where a lot of Republican representatives were not allowed to take part in that. Now, a lot of them were in there, but not, it was a very small portion. I think maybe 20% of them. I don't know the exact percentage, but it wasn't as much as probably the Democrats. So this is just really just another example of how, the Democrats have really failed to persuade not only the Senate Republicans, but also the American public in general, because I believe it was like 60% or more of the public at large are just not in favor of this whole process. They want to move on. They want to get back to the matters at hand, and they just want the representatives to work for them again. And that's really what matters. I think that's what really matters now. It's not really about getting up in anybody's faces and humiliating anyone. I think we just need to let this whole thing go. Moving on. Evangelical singer calls out Trump's Christian supporters in scathing new song. This is from an Indiana pastor, and he puts evangelicals who support Trump on notice. And I'm not exactly sure why this is even really news. There's a lot of people who say that the Christian supporting base of Trump, they're really hypocrites because Trump isn't the best Christian and all this stuff. We've heard this before, and we've also heard this last term, with the last term of Obama, where his own religion was in question. I want to say something. Why are we questioning someone's religion or not? I could really care less whether Trump is a Christian or not. The only thing that I really care about is that he protects all values. all religions and all of our rights to practice whatever religion that we want to practice. I think it's really hypocritical, especially when it's coming from within the guard of the Christian, if you want to call it Christian right or whatever, that it's just kind of, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. This whole country was based, you can say it's on Christian values, but I would counter and say that it was based on the rights that it was endowed by our Creator. Now, we can worship, our God or gods or whatever in any way that we want, and that is what is truly good and truly good about the and truly important and very detrimental about the Constitution. It's the nexus point of the Constitution. It really protects those God-given and rights. And if you want to say, if you don't believe in God, that's fine, but we have certain inalienable rights that cannot be taken away or can't be voted away democratically by any house of government. That is the whole point of the Constitution. And for someone to make a song that says, those who are supporting Trump, if you're a Christian, you're a complete hypocrite. Well, we've been called, people have been called hypocrites for all of eternity. I call some Republicans hypocrites. I call a lot of Democrats hypocrites all the time. Everyone's a hypocrite. When at the end of the day, we're all hypocrites. So I just don't understand this when it doesn't really make much sense. We really have to focus on what is really the important thing, and that is keeping our rights in place. It doesn't really matter what any one leader believes. And I know there's some people can counter and say, well, it's what they believe is, and that's really what their policies. And I'll give you that. I can totally understand that if you had someone that was in there that didn't have like pro-life values that would be more in line with the Christian right or something like that, or just a Christian in general, because there's a lot of Democrats out there that consider themselves Christians. So just the Christian base would believe in pro-life. And if you had someone that was in office that was not pro-life or pro-choice, or someone that wasn't a Christian or something like that, or happened to be a Christian but didn't believe that way, I understand that certain ideological views can and they do naturally make their way over into policy. So you can look at it both ways, and I completely understand that. But as far as I have seen, even though Trump is not I wouldn't say he's a perfect person, obviously, but there is no perfect person. We have all fallen short of the grace of God and all that kind of stuff. We're all sinners, and none of us are saints. And some of us believe we are, but we are not. And this is just kind of a hypocritical argument, pot calling the kettle black type stuff. I mean, we should just move on from all that stuff. It just doesn't make much sense. Moving on, here also on the Christian front here, godless commies. This was from The Sun. And coronavirus plague sent by God to punish China and parents who make kids transgender claims. Crackpot pastor. I happen to agree with this one. This is kind of crackpot. Didn't even bother to even really listen to this man talk. This is just kind of really stupid. It says here, crackpot pastor has bizarrely claimed coronavirus is an end times plague sent to punish Chinese communists, the parents of transgender children, and sexually immoral Americans. So it's only those three groups that coronavirus has been sent. I just don't understand why those on the in the Christian majority, or if you want to call them majority, the Christian base, really want to give these types of comments any light of day. I think they should be condemned, obviously. Those who do believe in God, I believe in God. I believe God loves everybody, no matter what. And obviously we're not perfect people, but we have to strive to be good to our neighbors. And saying stuff like this is just really it just causes more division. There is no proof of this. It's absolutely ridiculous for someone to come out and say that it's just like when there's a hurricane or when there's earthquakes. Well, that's God just punishing people. Well, I would counter and say that, if God's just, if he's just intervening whenever he's like pissed off or he's upset that we've done something wrong. Okay, what happens when someone does something right? Why isn't he there? I personally don't believe in God intervening all the time and just making himself known all the time through all these cataclysms and stuff like that. That's what I personally believe, because if that was the case, I mean, just thinking philosophically or theologically speaking, if that was really the case, then free will really wouldn't exist, because then you would have God intervening. God would be intervening all the time, and I just don't believe in how that works, or if that's even a possibility and stuff like that. Theologically and philosophically, I don't believe in that. Of course, I don't have any proof either way, but I just don't. It just doesn't really make much sense to me. And I'm not going to give it that much more time. But we see this kind of stuff all the time anyway. So moving on, we're going into the coronavirus. If you remember that I was talking about this a couple weeks ago before it kind of took off. Now they're calling it a mass epidemic. We really don't even know how many people are really sick and how many have already died, besides in those places where those counts are a little bit, more accurate. We can't really even say that the counts are being accurate from China either, because as we know, China is a communist nation and they have state-run media, and all the information does go through the state. There's been people that have been arrested for trying to either tweet or do something on social media talking about this virus. And it really starts to make you question what's really going on over there. Is it only 7,000 people that have been infected and 300 are dead, or is it a lot more? We really have to start asking ourselves these questions. And kind of humorously, this is kind of humorous, but this from CNN Politics. This was from a couple days ago. Coronavirus Task Force, another example of Trump administration's lack of diversity. And we can see here, I just don't like CNN site. It has these things that keep pushing down whenever you try to see something. But we see this picture here. The top obviously is Trump, bottom is Obama. And this was, I guess this was a some sort of health organization. Now, we don't really know, I guess, what this bottom picture is. I guess it was from maybe another outbreak. I think it was a 2014 Ebola outbreak in West Africa. Okay, so these are two. We can see there's a lot more diversity there. We have two black people, a couple white people, a woman, older gentleman, so forth. Yeah, it's more diverse. I get that. But why is that so important to CNN? Why is that so important that we have diversity everywhere? I mean, I know that might sound rough, but if, the way that I look at it is if the person that that applies to the job, or the person, in fact, Trump is the one that appoints all these people, and you could say, well, he doesn't have enough diversity. But I would counter and also say there's a lot of other parts of the government that Trump has appointed where there has been a lot of diversity. In fact, even more diversity than the Obama administration. So, I mean, can we just call this a wash now? I mean, if we really want to focus on this type of thing, it just turns into just a ridiculous type of whirlpool that just drains into, just the absurd. I mean, we can't really focus on what really matters anymore when all we are focusing on is the color of the skin of people who are involved in it. I mean, Martin Luther King would probably be rolling around his grave right now because of all this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't even like talking about it anymore, because I feel like I'm giving it more credit than it's due. Some can make the argument that that Trump is a little bit less diverse than Obama, and they might have a point. But, like I said, I could also counter with a lot of other instances where he's been more. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about getting a job done. It's all about working for the American people. It's all about working for all people of all colors, and making sure everyone has the right opportunities. Okay, we want equality of opportunities, not equality of outcomes. Because when we have equality of outcomes, then everyone loses. Everyone loses as a result. And the people that are the 1%, the elites out there, they make out no matter what. And we all know that. But this whole coronavirus, it's causing a lot of issues here. So there was an interesting video here, and I'll play this a couple times, but there are doctors, look like doctors that are actually in China that are walking around with either semi-automatic or fully automatic weapons. This is kind of scary. I mean, take a look.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So that's kind of interesting there. I had to play that a couple times. Feel free to rewind and watch it. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, those are obviously semi-automatic type of assault-style rifles. They are obviously clad in your typical doctor's wear and stuff like that. We really don't know what's coming out of China because they're being really secretive about it. They're only releasing so much information, especially when it comes to the numbers. And this is something that we should really be paying attention to. But what's even more interesting here, Twitter has recently suspended Zero Hedge for coronavirus doxing. This was from CCN. It's not CNN, but CCN. They have said Twitter suspended pro-Trump news website Zero Hedge. If you ever read Zero Hedge, it's a very interesting news site. They have a lot of, and it's not so much just far right kind of stuff. They're really just trying to get at the story underneath the story, and I highly recommend reading Zero Hedge. It's very interesting. But needless to say that their Twitter account, which obviously is very important in getting the news out these days, has been suspended. And because there was stories about them spreading a conspiracy theory, quote unquote conspiracy theory, about the origin of the coronavirus. And they also supposedly put the email address and so forth of the doctor that they were proposing was basically at the epicenter of this entire thing. So Twitter suspended Zero Hedge Friday afternoon. So this is not the first time Zero Hedge has run afoul of major platform rules. Popular market-focused blog with a contrarian streak has 673,000 followers, but they won't be reading any new Zero Hedge tweets today. I don't know. We don't know if it's going to come back. I'm willing to bet that it won't. Social media, in fact, Twitter has been very, very loose with its banning now. I think that Mark Zuckerberg is kind of taking a step back because maybe he sees that there's been a lot of censorship that's been going on the conservative side, or people that are just truthers, in general. And a lot of this is actually kind of seeping back into Facebook's, their whole streaming. He's not liking it. He's not liking what a lot of these social media platforms are doing. But I call that irony. And if he really wants to do that, unblock everybody. Let them have their accounts back, and celebrate freedom of speech, because freedom of speech is all about allowing people to speak, even if it's terrible stuff, even if stuff you don't agree with. And you can't go around policing everything and trying to fact check everything. That's why we have so many news sources out there that people can do their own research. This is just another form of just babying people from birth to grave. If you're an adult, even if you're not an adult, even if you're 13 or 14 years old, you're smart enough to be able to go out there and look at and be able to do your own research. Okay, people are really smart these days. I would contend that they're really dumb in other areas. But as far as social media research and the interwebs and stuff like that in general, people are pretty smart, and they know how to research now. So we need to stop babying people. Let the speech reign. Let free speech reign. That's our First Amendment. And the more they mess with that, the worse everything is going to get. So where did this all originate from? So we have to go back to Zero Hedge. This was from yesterday. So that's they actually posted coronavirus contains HIV insertion stroking fears over artificially created bioweapon. So if this is something that is that you're hearing that's new, we can also go back to 2017 January, excuse me. That was a couple years ago, 3 years ago. And obviously, they've already put an editor's note here. Many stories have promoted an unverified theory that the Wuhan lab discussed in this article played a role in the coronavirus outbreak that began in December 2019. Nature knows no evidence of this, blah, 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 whatever. This was from 2017. It says, inside the Chinese lab poised to study world's most dangerous pathogens. Please understand that this also coincides with the bats as well. Okay. Scientists traced 2002 SARS, which is a respiratory virus that was out in 2002, virus to colony of cave-dwelling bats in China. So this is also going back to bats as well. Going back to the Zero Hedge article here. It's really funny, though, if you don't know what they're doing in China, they are actually giving a lot of these people HIV medication. I wonder why that is. Now I know. Is because there was several HIV insertions into the actual pathogen of the coronavirus. Here over the past few days, this was from Zero Hedge, the mainstream press has vigorously pushed back against the theory that about the origins of the coronavirus that has now infected as many as 70,000 people. Now it's 70,000, right? Who's telling the truth? We'll have to wait and see, I guess, in Wuhan alone. The theory is that China obtained the coronavirus via a Canadian research program and started molding it into a bioweapon at the Institute of Virology in Wuhan. This is verified from 2017. Now, they're not actually showing that article anymore, but I actually saw the article, and you might be able to still find it somewhere on the internet. But I'm pretty sure they are going around and taking this down. Big surprise, right? PolitiFact pointed the finger at Zero Hedge in particular, though the story was widely shared across independent-leaning media. The theory is that the virus, which was developed by infectious disease experts, may have originally in the Wuhan-based lab of Dr. Peng Zhao, the Chinese preeminent researcher of bat immune systems. You see where this is going, specifically in how their immune system adapt to the presence of viruses like coronavirus and other destructive viruses. Somehow the virus escaped from the lab, and the human fish market where the virus supposedly originated is merely a ruse. Goes further by saying an uncanny similarity of unique inserts in the 2019 NCOV, that's medical speak there for coronavirus spike protein to HIV1, GP120, and GAG. Indian researchers are baffled by segments of the virus's RNA, which is part of the DNA, that have no relation to other coronaviruses like SARS, and instead appear to be closer to HIV. The virus even responds to treatments by HIV medications. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I'll kind of break this down to you. It's really hard to implant these HIV type of inserts into this RNA. It's really hard to do that. And they have concluded that it would have had to been genetically modified. They would have had to intentionally put this in there. So why would they be doing that? I don't know, but it's not a conspiracy theory if they're actually doing it. There was a lot of independent, like I said, a lot of independent media from 2017 saying that there was this lab that exists. They were experimenting with new pathogens, and it had to do with bats and stuff. So, come on. It's just put two and two together. All of this is a huge dumpster fire. We all know that at this point, it's all falling apart. I really contend that this is probably, and I'm not going to say it's possible. It's highly possible that China was actually working on some sort of biomedical bioweapon. What did I say when I first started talking about this? I started talking about how a lot of these countries were getting away. They were getting away from like nuclear type and other conventional military weapons. They were going down the biomedical route. They were going on the pathogen route. Biochemical, whatever you want to call it, bio warfare in general, or chemical warfare, but normally bio warfare, because it's I'm not going to say it's less messy, because it's totally messy, but it's something that I'll have to say that it levels the playing field. Here in the United States, we have how many nuclear weapons? Probably not as much as we had during the Cold War, but we still have a lot. And Russia still has a lot. China still has a lot. The major superpowers still have a large arsenal of nuclear weapons. But what could actually level the playing field even more? If some of these countries actually invested more in these bio warfare types of weaponry that could take out masses of people. It's almost like an EMP attack, right? These are the things that we really need to keep an eye on, because those things could take out and cause a pandemic and could take out millions of people, So yeah, that's I found that very, very highly interesting. How this Chinese lab that's in Wuhan that was studying this type of thing concerning bats, and you see that where all of this is really going. Moving forward here, Michelle Obama sparks vice president run rumors. Now, this is nothing new. Michelle Obama's been talking about this a lot. I'm not sure if this is just pandering on the part of Joe Biden because he really wants Obama's endorsement, and what better way than getting Obama's endorsement than putting a Michelle Obama on the ticket? I think Joe Biden's getting a little desperate. I think that he knows that he has a good chance of getting a nomination, but now he's getting a little scared because Bernie Sanders is really coming up, and he doesn't think that the DNC is going to be able to control Bernie Sanders, his staff, or his supporters anymore. This is some random video here. Sorry about that. That just happens whenever you're doing this live. But yeah, I think this is a little bit of pandering on part of Joe Biden's, and he's trying to get a lot more of a share of the voter base, and he really wants to get Obama's endorsement as well, if he hasn't already received it by now. Moving forward, this was very interesting and kind of a sick story here. There was a convicted child molester, and he's been convicted of molesting like a lot of kids under 13. I'm not exactly sure. I think it was 15 kids here. The Storm Lake Times reported that Joseph Matthew Smith, a 23-year-old convicted of molesting a fellow MSC student in 2014, also molested up to 15 kids. And all these kids were ranging from the ages of 1 to 13. Please understand. This is the sick part here, okay, is that the Iowa sex offender registry, where does it start here? Smith received transgender treatment for the last 2 years at Newton Correctional Facility and starting using female pronouns. Well, good for him. We don't believe we have evidence sufficient to prove Josie, I guess his name's Josie now, has a significant chance of reoffending, right? Haven't we seen so many of these the transsexuals that were actually convicted of molesting kids? I'm not saying that all transsexuals are like this. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that it has been happening. There has been a pattern of this happening, and I'm no way saying that transsexuals are all like this. I'm not saying. I'm talking about this one specific story in general because I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they are letting this person go. Yes, he has to be, or she, whatever, has to be on the sexual registered offender list. But they're letting this person go after having raped 15 kids, people. Isn't this going far enough? Okay, I don't care if whatever you do in prison, if you want to chop your genitals off and you want to turn into another religion, or if you want to call yourself a unicorn toaster, I don't really care what you do in prison as long as you stay in prison because you're a threat to other people. Now that you're transgender, you're automatically not a threat. What is that? What kind of argument is that? And we aren't hearing about this in mainstream media. Well, this is from Daily Wire. I couldn't find this anywhere else. They don't want to talk about this because it's against the narrative that they're trying to push forward, you know? And, you know, if you have gender dysphoria, I feel bad for you. I really do. I know that's probably got to be a really bad thing, but there is a lot of different things that you can do. If you've already broken the law and you've already raped a whole bunch of kids, what is that? Okay, if this character chopped his genitals off and was castrated and stuff like that, I might be like, yeah, well, maybe this person's not so much of a threat anymore. I still think they should remain in prison because of what they did to other people and the lives that they shattered. Does that mean nothing to anyone anymore? Does the idea sanctity of of a young child not mean anything to anyone anymore? I mean, we know that abortion is just so cool now. It's so trendy, especially after birth abortions. And you know, I saw that there was a lot of people at this pro-life and the pro-choice rally here recently where the president spoke. At least on the pro-life side, there's a lot of people that are saying that after birth abortion, that's just a conspiracy theory. That's not real. Ask Virginia that. Virginia and a lot of other states are saying, yeah, that's cool. We can do that. If if a baby's born, then it's really up to between the mother and the doctor whether after it's born, whether it lives or dies. But that's okay. We can kill it. No big deal. A perfectly healthy baby can just have its skull crushed. We'll just treat it like a cow, right? We'll just go ahead and just put a thing through its a stake through its brain. No big deal. We don't care about life anymore. We don't care. This kind of stuff really makes me upset. It pisses me off. And I know that it pisses a lot of people off out there. This is one of the stories that just like, this really irked the hell out of me. But it just, it just gets better, right? It just gets it gets better. This is another story here. This was from yesterday. This is another example of how crazy Elizabeth Warren is. Bill Maher has openly mocked her because she wants to have a transgender child to vet the education secretary. She wants to have a 13-year-old transgender child make all the decisions about the Department of Education. This is not a joke. This is what she wants. This is what a lot of the Democrats want. I used to be a Democrat, but the Democratic Party left me because they're completely insane. I have nothing wrong with transgender people, but I don't think a 10 to 13-year-old transgender child should be making decisions of the Department of Education. I mean, call me crazy, but I just don't think that is something that I don't think that is a road that we should be going down. But here's Bill Maher talking about it.
She wants her second. High school, a young trans person, I believe in high school. I'm going to have a Secretary of Education that this young trans person interviews on my behalf, and only if this person believes our Secretary of Education nominee is absolutely committed.
You know what? I am so sorry about that. I had this is the problems with doing stuff live. You have different kind of pops-ups and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and restart this this video here, this clip here.
She wants her Secretary of Education to be vetted by a high school student. I'm not kidding. She said a young trans person, I believe in high school. I'm going to have a Secretary of Education that this young trans person interviews on my behalf, and only if this person believes our Secretary of Education nominee is absolutely committed. Now, Obama said people just don't want crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. Is this not crazy stuff?
Bill Maher's right. I agree with Bill Maher on a lot of stuff that he talks about. There's a lot of stuff I don't agree with, but he's right on this one. This is absolutely insane. Elizabeth Warren is probably I would have to say she's more dangerous than Bernie Sanders. If I had to choose between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, I would choose Bernie Sanders 100% day after day. And I just don't know how, as crazy as some of the Bernie supporters out there, and believe me, I don't support Bernie Sanders. I think that his socialist agenda is going to be bad. Now, I do agree with a lot of the socialist policies, okay, as far as having some sort of net there for people who really do need it. But as far as just making everything free and having something that's going to cost $60 trillion over the next 10 years, that's absolutely ridiculous. An extra $6 trillion just for a couple programs every single year. I mean, that is absolutely insane. We're already going bankrupt right now. This country is already going bankrupt. Our money will soon be worthless. I mean, if we see what all these other countries are doing, I mean, a lot of them are getting out of the way because they see an implosion coming in this country as far as the economy goes. And a lot of people say, yeah, the economy is doing great and the stock market's really high. But as far as the stock market goes, a lot of that it's artificially propped up. And I'll be the first to say that. I'm not the first person to say that. A lot of well-known Rhodes Scholar economists are saying that it's artificially propped up as it has been for a long time. And that's going to make this recession and, in fact, probably depression going to be even worse going forward. I'm not going to try to blow, smoke up anyone's butts or try to make rainbows out of everything. I hope it really doesn't happen, but it's a mathematical probability and almost inevitability at this point that we are going to at least go through a massive recession here pretty soon. It's just getting more and more likely. So this whole transgender thing, and Elizabeth Warren, I think that she is just trying to out-left the left at this point. I think that she's just putting anything out there. I think she's just throwing the kitchen sink at a lot of stuff because she's running, third or fourth now? Maybe even further down the road. I think she's third or fourth. But she's been losing a lot of steam. She was number one for a little bit, then she got overtaken. She hasn't regained her stature yet as a forerunner, and I don't think she will. There's not a lot of people out there that really like Elizabeth Warren. I think that they're supporting her because they don't want to support an open socialist. Maybe, I don't even know if that's really an argument, or maybe they just hate Trump enough to vote for Elizabeth Warren. I don't know why she has the supporters that she does, because the stuff that comes out of her mouth is completely insane. But as far as insane, there's a lot of people out there right now, they've been calling Trump a king or a monarch or something like that. You know, it's gone from Hitler, it's gone from dictator, and of course they're still saying this kind of stuff. But now it's a king and it's a monarch, and you know, this is just more ridiculousness from the left. And, you know, I have to talk about it because just how ridiculous it is. Because if Trump was a king or a monarch or a dictator, or if he was literally Hitler, then none of this would be going down as we have seen it. We would not see years and years of the media attacking Trump. We wouldn't see the House, you know, just holding everything up, trying to get rid of him. And Trump has really just been like, okay, just do whatever you want. You know, I'm still gonna troll on Twitter. I'm still gonna be calling you idiots and stuff like that. So what? You know, I think he's actually deserved that at this point, because, you know, the 90% of what they actually come out, and I'm not going to say 99 or 100, probably it's at least 90% of what they come out is just pure fabrication. It has a dash of truth, and it's just a whole pound of lies and exaggerations and hyperbole and all this kind of stuff, and just all this faux outrage. You know, like I said before, if you listen to before, if Trump does something wrong, you know, I am going to throw him under the bus. I throw Republicans and evangelicals under the bus all the time. I've done it in this video, you know. But, I mean, Trump has not deserved any of this kind of stuff. He's doing okay, even though I truly believe at this point in history that we're going off the cliff no matter what. You know, and it has nothing to do with what Trump did. It has nothing to do with what Obama did. It has to do with what everyone has done throughout history, and what you know, what the Fed has done, what our banking system has done, and the way that the elite are just kind of just pulling the strings that the way they've done throughout history, for that matter. They've always played both sides of the coin, and they've made money either way. You know. I mean, they're going to win either way. It doesn't really matter. We know that. If you're in the know and you're woke, I guess, you would know this. But, you know, they've been calling Trump a king for quite some time now. And it's, you know, it's getting kind of old.
More aptly, it would unleash a monarch.
He's functionally a monarch.
The defense team said, in essence, that Donald Trump is a king.
He believes he's king now.
We are not supposed to have a king. That was the main thing, other than, you know, not wanting to have equal rights for women and black people and Native Americans. The founders didn't want a king.
Now what we have is we have a constitutional monarchy, or a constitutional autocracy, where Donald Trump is the supreme element of this state, like North Korea.
The president will see himself as one who can emulate that kind of monarchical power.
Find me a president who has had this much political power.
This is going to reverberate for the dysfunction of the Senate and the empowerment of an imperial presidency for who knows how far into the future.
So I think these Republicans are shamefully behaving as if the president were a king and they were his patrons.
Because they know demographically they're losing out, that they're not going to be able to maintain sort of white Christian America. Do you believe that because of that, they have now essentially made Donald Trump into a king?
So, yeah, I really think that this whole king and this monarch, this dictator, the Hitler speech and all this other kind of stuff, I mean, it's really getting really played out. I think it's just, it's one more dog whistle to kind of appease their base and stuff like that. I think that people are really just wanting to be continuously fed this story and this narrative to reinforce their hate. Because if they actually stop and really think about this, they'll realize that their true enemy is not Trump. It's the entire establishment. It's the swamp, as Trump would like to say. And yes, unfortunately, Trump is actually kind of part of the swamp now, right? Because we have this entire system that's just enveloping in on itself. And it's really hard to separate it out. It's oil and water. You know, it's not oil and water. It's really hard to separate it out. If you mix the Kool-Aid in, you can't mix it out, you know. So this is just something else. And as far as the The whole witnesses types of thing, where they're saying there's no witness, there's not going to be any real type of acquittal because they didn't want to have more witnesses. And this is something that people forget, because in history, if you remember, if you're old enough, during Bill Clinton's impeachment inquiry and preceding trial, they didn't want any witnesses either. They really didn't want any witnesses either, and I guess people forget about that.
Gotten this far, the House acted improperly in passing it on to the Senate.
Why is your party dragging this thing out?
Why is this happening?
Why go through all this business about witnesses?
Do we really need more witnesses?
It's going to add months to this thing.
We should stop this
bogus inflated case
and get on with business of governance.
Will these people just get down to business and leave this impeachment thing alone?
It's going to be an enormous distraction to the White House and all kinds of issues that the Congress ought to be considering.
There's a long line of the people's business that seems to have been put aside, and apparently is going to be put aside for weeks, if not months now.
We begin tonight with the voice of the people.
The visitor who got up and shouted, "God Almighty, take the vote and get it over with."
God Almighty, the man said, take the vote and get it over with.
You know who the hero of this whole thing is? It's the guy who stood up in the Senate gallery last week and said, "Good God, vote and get over with it."
So that's just a small smattering there of some of the news reports in the media heads talking back in Bill Clinton's administration when that went to Senate and they wanted more witnesses. So it's the same thing. We hear the same thing, and people are getting outraged once again over this entire thing. Can we just move on? Can we stop being, as they say, non-playable characters or NPCs? Can we start using our rational brains when we're thinking about this? This is just kind of getting out of hand here. So moving on to some different types of news here. This is nothing new, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Secure Wings, KFC has security screens, bulletproof glass as well to shield staff from attacks as another branch puts up wire fence over its counter. So this is nothing new. We've been seeing this in a lot of different restaurants here, where they're putting up bulletproof glass and other types of security measures to keep people from, I guess, robbing a fast food joint. I don't know who really robs a fast food joint. They don't really carry a lot of money, okay? But they do have probably maybe a few $1,000s on hand, and I guess it's an easier type of thing than to rob than a bank. But at the same time, we have just a lot of violence being broken out in a lot of fast food restaurants. I could make a joke and say, this is a whole Popeyes versus KFC type thing, or maybe Chick-fil-A type thing where people are literally going crazy over these chicken sandwiches, and a lot of fights are breaking out. It's very dangerous to eat a chicken sandwich these days. That's really the joke that's really kind of going around. That's what everyone's memeing about. I don't know if that's just, I'm late on the bandwagon about that, but that's what kind of really I thought about this. Maybe it's just the whole KFC thing, but we're having to put bulletproof glass in KFCs because people are just kind of going nuts. I mean, this is just another type of example of the degradation of the society, how bad it's really getting out there, where we have to have bulletproof glass and other type of wire mesh or whatever to keep people safe while they do their job. Moving on here, let me see. Actually, what I want to talk about, one of the things I want to talk about is Buttigieg. He's been in the news recently. He said something very weird. He says that the American economy needed 11 million immigrants. And I have a video of him talking here, so I'll play it and we'll talk about it.
That's way to a stronger, safer economy and life for so many people. Remember, the reason we have 11 million undocumented immigrants is because our economy needed 11 million more people than our system was prepared to admit. So
I'm not exactly sure what he was talking about there. That's really why I wanted to post that. It was a very short clip of another one of his town hall meetings, and I guess someone was talking about the legal immigrant problem, and he's saying that the economy needed those 11 million illegal immigrants because it needed it to be able to function correctly. I'm not exactly sure what Pete Buttigieg is really talking about. I don't think that really even he knows what he's talking about. If it's not between him saying that the Democratic Party really doesn't have any room for people who are pro-life, like we talked about in the last episode, and this where he's really talking about that the country, the economy actually needs illegal immigrants. I'm not exactly sure where the logic there is. The economy needs regular immigrants, absolutely. People that are skilled, people that want to be here to embrace our values and to live in harmony with other people and to learn all the culture and values of this country. I know there's a lot of people that live here and everybody has different values, but the American culture and values never change. Okay. The American culture and values is all about the Constitution and protecting the rights of everyone. Everyone has their fair their fair rights, their fair share and stuff like that. And I'm not talking about share as far as socialism. I'm just talking about their share of the rights of the country, and to be equally represented under the law, the Constitution, their representatives, and so forth. That's what I'm really speaking of. It's about freedom, and that's really what it's all about. And I don't know why we have to keep talking about this. If there is a lot of illegal immigrants that aren't on any kind of payroll and their employers aren't paying Social Security taxes or any type of taxes on those immigrants or those employees, then I'm not sure how that is really helping the economy. Now, I'm not an economist. I didn't go to Harvard or anything like that, but I don't think you really need to go to Harvard to understand that this is just kind of a it's kind of a nonsense type of thing to say. Pete Buttigieg is really kind of he's isolating himself from everyone else, and I think he's just trying to, like Elizabeth Warren, I believe he's trying to out-left the left, and I don't think that's going to work too well for him, especially with the moderates and independents out there who's seeing this kind of stuff, and they're like, well, I really don't understand what's going on here. This doesn't really make a lot of sense. So on to another story. I didn't really know whether I really want to talk about this or not, because I was kind of weird, but Barbie has been coming out with some new Barbies, I guess, more diverse Barbies. There's a lot of Barbies here that, now this is about a collection about self-care. I guess it's about maybe, going to the gym and doing yoga and stuff like that, and maybe meditating and all this kind of stuff. I guess we're just trying to teach the kids how to be, take better care of themselves. I don't know why we need Mattel or Barbie to really do this for us. As parents, if you have kids, this is what your job is. Your job is to instill the values, of not only, what you believe, but also what is good and moral and upright into your children, regardless of where you come from, or if you're an immigrant or you're whatever. It doesn't matter. That's what your job is as a parent. I believe that most parents try to do this as best as they can. I think that this is just another pandering thing. Yeah, sorry about the pop-up. I think this is just another pandering thing from the left and from Barbie itself, trying to pander to, the all-inclusive diversity type of thing that's going on. There's nothing wrong with diversity. There's nothing wrong with that. But we should not be forcing diversity in lieu of talent, in lieu of someone else's rights. That should come first. First and foremost, that should come first. Diversity will naturally come as a result of instilling these values in our culture. The better we are at that, diversity will always come as a result of that, especially through our legal immigration process and stuff like that. I want as many people in this country, and I want this as diverse as well, but I don't want diversity just for diversity's sake. That can be very toxic. And is not going to serve anything very well for the population in general. But we need to focus on not only talent, but also, the people that will really embrace the American culture and embrace our Constitution and what it truly means to be an American. I don't want to beat a dead horse here or anything like that, but I felt like it needed to be said. Here's another article here from Fast Company. There are real women who represent beauty in all its forms. Why do we need Barbie to do it for us? I think that's a really good, kind of sums it all up. I think if you go into any of your typical Walmarts or Targets or whatever, you look for Barbie, you're going to see your typical Barbie. You're going to see the blonde. You're going to see Candy's going to have short hair. You're going to see most of that. You're going to also see, probably some some black Barbies as well, you know, and you might be able to see some Muslim Barbies. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't looked at Barbies in a while, but I'm just going based on what other people have said. Maybe the next time I'm at Walmart, I'll actually look if I care, which I really don't. I just don't see where this whole diversity for diversity's sake, this whole thing where it's so important. We should be taking each individual person based on how they are as an individual. I don't care if you only have one leg or one arm, you're black, you're white, you're a Jew, you're Chinese. It doesn't really matter to me. I don't care who you are, what you look like. If you are a good and decent person of moral, upright character, and you embrace the cultural values of this country, then I have no problem with you. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. What only matters is the group dynamics and this type of group identity politics that is continuing to be forwarded by the left, that just continues to divide everyone and is supposed to make everyone feel guilty for some reason. I don't understand this. I think it needs to go away. I think it's, like I said, it's diversity just for diversity's sake. It has nothing to do with individual people on an individual level, and that's really what the whole difference is. So I really want to kind of wrap this up here. It's been about 51 minutes. I do want to have a few kind of funny videos. First one here is John Kerry talking about the AR-16, right? Of course, you know the AR-15 is one of the most popular, probably the most popular platforms, alongside with the AK-47 semi-automatic weapon in this country. I would say the AR-15 is probably more popular in this country alone. But John Kerry doesn't know what he's talking about. He wants to take your guns, but he doesn't even know what guns to take here. I think this is kind of funny.
I'm a hunter. I'm a gun owner. Been that all my life. But I got news for you. I'm sure there's not a veteran here who would take an AR-16 with a long clip to go out and shoot a deer or shoot anything.
Well, apparently there was a little feedback on that video. I'm not sure if you've heard that or not, but yeah, sorry about that. I have another video here of, I think it's Bloomberg. Bloomberg is shaking people's hands, and he decides to shake the mouth of a dog, which is really kind of bizarre. That was kind of weird there. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of an audio issue, but yeah, I just really wanted to kind of show that the the candidates out there, they're awkward, they're strange, they do weird stuff. You know, Trump was the same way, but I mean, it just seems like it's just every single day. A lot of the candidates on the left are just saying kind of weird stuff. The only one that's not really saying a lot of weird stuff is Bernie Sanders. He's very consistent with his socialism. I think he's completely nuts when it comes to that, but at least he's not like putting his foot in his mouth all the time like some of the other candidates. I obviously would not support him. I don't think, just simply because he's just too much of a socialist, and the people that he surrounds himself, especially with his staffers that are calling for mass executions and stuff like that. I mean, this is real. I mean, just wake up. I hope those people have actually been fired on his staff. I think Bernie really needs to address this type of thing because it's in his backyard. And if he really wants to have a chance at this presidency and wants to move forward with, I guess, his agenda and stuff like that, even though I'm against it, I think that he really needs to address a lot of these stuff. And instead of just, pushing it away and underneath the proverbial carpet. So until next time, this is with Joe. This is Joe with Simple Life Show. I'll see you in the next video. Have a nice day. Bye.